Hi all, as usual a very good morning. I hope that my video class will find you all in a better and safe position during this corona times. So today we are going to learn about Samuel Taylor Coleridge and his Biographia Literaria. It is one of the important aspects of romantic criticism. He was an important critic of romantic period. As you all know, in the previous class we have taken and understood more about romantic criticism as well as William Wordsworth and his lyrical ballads. Now, if I tell you something about romantic criticism as a gist, I would like to say that romantic criticism was something that gave more importance to subjectivity or the person or the poet as such, and it also gave importance to nature. So the romantics always tried to find God in everything that they find in the universe. It is certainly found in the works of William Wordsworth as well as Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So you can see that Wordsworth was a person who said that the rustic language was the best language in which a poem can be written, as the person concerned or the common man is always in connection with nature, and the language that he has with the nature is the best kind of language. And also, William Wordsworth, he says about who is a poet. He says that the poet is a person who is endowed with more lively sensibility. He must have the capability to make the reader move into a certain kind of aesthetic pleasure, a kind of sublimity, as Longinus has said. So, the primary thing of a work or a poem is to give a kind of aesthetic appeal. Now, this so I got certain suggestions as well as confusions regarding the year in which preface to lyrical ballads was written. It was found in your assignment also. See, the lyrical ballads was published in the year 1798, and after that it was also a brainchild, half the brainchild of Coleridge, I've told you earlier, because it was a combined combination of composition of both the ideas that was there in the Coleridge's mind as well as in Wordsworth's mind. So you can see that after the publication of lyrical ballads, Coleridge broke away from this particular thought that is seen in the lyrical ballads, and later he published his work named as Biographia Literaria, which was published in the year 1817. As for Wordsworth, you can see that Wordsworth later published a preface to lyrical ballads, which was published in the year 1800. So there should not be any kind of confusion regarding that. Okay. So it was lyrical ballads. It was published in 1798, and this gave an opening to the romantic criticism. Later there were many critics like Shelley, Byron, etc. But also you can see that the two eminent personalities that was there in romantic criticism is well-known Wordsworth as well as Coleridge. Now, if I ask you what is the difference between the works of Wordsworth and Coleridge? Wordsworth is a person who is associated with nature. He always finds nature in everything. That is his nature, his natural language, as well as the subjects that he take are of course natural. But as for Coleridge, you can see that he always gives some kind of a supernatural element in his work. This is more evident in the rhyme of the ancient mariner, of course. In this particular rhyme of the ancient mariner, the killing of the albatross by the ancient mariner evokes a kind of uncertainty in the life of the mariners, and they think that it is the reincarnation of God Himself. And it also deals with certain myths and legends according to in cooperation with the albatross. It says that albatross, killing the albatross in the sea always gives rise to many kind of problems in their life. And of course, these mariners faced certain problems also. And in this particular poem, Coleridge says, "Water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink." Why? Because water is there, they are already in the sea. But the kind of livelihood they are living, the stress, the strain, the pain, and the struggle they have to encounter after the storm, this makes them feel that they cannot quench their thirst with a certain pure drop of water. So that is seen here, and later on you can see his eminent piece of work, which is the Kubla Khan. In this particular work you can see that Kubla Khan is drinking the milk of paradise. What is the milk of paradise? His eyes are rolling also. What is the milk of paradise? It is giving a kind of supernatural element to his poetry. So Coleridge is a person who finds supernaturality in natural things, whereas Wordsworth is a person who gives natural induction to natural things itself. As for Coleridge, you can see after his criticism of Biographia Literaria, there was a kind of departure from the soul. Of course, there was a kind of departure from the soul, and that was that this departure was because of the different kind of thoughts that Wordsworth and Coleridge had upon the same kind of things. So, we are going to our next slide. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he was born in 1772 and he died in the year 1834. He was an eminent English poet, literary critic, philosopher, and friend of William Wordsworth. He was one among the founders of the Romantic movement in England, and also he was a member of the Lake Poets. Okay, a Lake Poets was a group of poets who lived beside the lake Thames. Okay, so this particular group of poets was known as Lake Poets. So he was one of the eminent personalities in the name which was known as the Lake Poets. Now going to the next slide. Biographia Literaria, which was published in 1817. It was written in 1815, but it got published in 1817. It was a major prose work and his critical work, especially on William Shakespeare. And he helped to introduce German idealist philosophy to English speaking culture. He introduced the German philosophy into the English speaking culture, and this made others think that this particular person, Coleridge, is a person who was copying the German philosophers. Okay, and he helped to introduce the German idealistic philosophy to the English speaking culture. Coleridge coined many familiar words and phrases, including willing suspension of disbelief. That is, including willing suspension. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Willing suspension of disbelief. It was a kind in which his supernaturality is made to the reader to make them understand and analyze that of course it was a willing suspension. These readers willingly suspend themselves in this kind of supernatural disbelief, and that is what he says here. Okay, willing suspension of disbelief. Now, when I go to the importance of Biographia Literaria, you can see that it includes most of the important English writing on poetic theory. Some of it is a response to the ideas of poetry advanced by his close friend and collaborator William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth's ideas were contradicted by Samuel Taylor Coleridge in his Biographia Literaria. Now, when you go to the information regarding the publication, you can see in 1815 the first part of Biographia Literaria was published. It was the chapters 1 to 13 which deals with the metaphysical inquiry and discussion, which was titled The Metaphysical Works as My Life and in My Life. The second part, chapters 14 to 22, is an examination of Wordsworth's theory of poetry and subject matter of poetry. So, the different ways in which Biographia Literaria is divided. 1 to 3 is a metaphysical inquiry into his own writings. The second part, 14 to 22, is an examination of Wordsworth's theory of poetry and subject matter of poetry, and you can see that the link between the two parts, the theory of imagination, it was a link between the two parts. In 1817, the both parts were published after a delay of 2 years. So you can see that the whole Biographia Literaria contains about 22 chapters. Very important, Biographia Literaria contains 22 chapters, and the first section, which was published in 1815, it was from 1 to 13, and this involves his own kind of metaphysical writing, and chapters 14 to 22 includes the kind of contradiction, the statements that he say about Wordsworth. And in the Biographia Literaria chapter 14, you can see that it is an important piece of chapter as well as an important piece of writing, because this is claimed to be the most important chapter written by Coleridge in his Biographia Literaria. So the most important chapter in his Biographia Literaria is chapter 14. So chapter 14 includes the most vital information, the important elements that he wants to say about William Wordsworth and his writings, and the way the contradiction is being put forward here. So based upon that, we can go to our slides. There is a link between the two parts. The two parts in which the Biographia Literaria is divided, there is a kind of link also. And the link is because of the kind of imagination that he says that is developed or within the mind of the poet. So imagination can be said as the link between the two sections. Now, in 1817, both parts were published after a delay of 2 years. Unfortunately, he had to wait for about 2 years for the publication of his critical treatise. Now, going to the main ideas, Coleridge offers a theory of creativity here. He brings about the theory of creativity. He divides imagination into primary imagination and secondary imagination. He says that there are two kinds of imagination, that is primary imagination and secondary imagination. Okay, and he tells about something, the primary and secondary imaginations. The primary imagination is common to all human beings. Everybody have this primary imagination. It enables us to perceive and make sense of the world. So it makes us understand and see the world. The world which we confront or we see are modeled by the primary imagination. It is a creative function and thereby repeats the divine act of creation. So there is a divine act of creation in the primary imagination. The secondary imagination. Now this is contradictory. The secondary imagination enables the individuals to transcend the primary imagination, not merely to perceive the connections but to make them. So of course there is a kind of connection between the primary imagination and the kind of writings. He says that when a person witnesses something, there is primary imagination, but after that, when the thing is there in his mind, it undergoes certain kind of changes. It undergoes a certain kind of secondary imagination. Secondary imagination is added to this primary imagination, and that only makes up the work that he is writing. So not merely to perceive the connections but to make them. It is a creative impulse that enables the poetry and other art. So secondary imagination is the creative part of any art, that is secondary imagination. Now when we go to the another name of secondary imagination, we can see that Coleridge gives the name fancy as the name of secondary imagination. So he deals with primary imagination and secondary imagination. Secondary imagination the മറ്റൊരു പേരാണ് fancy. And thereby you can say that he deals with a difference between the primary imagination or simply imagination and the secondary imagination or the fancy. Now, when we go to the differences between the primary imagination and the secondary imagination, okay, we are going to deal with the different kind of differences based on that. Now, definition. It is considered to hold the living power and primary agent of all human perception and a repetition in the finite mind of the eternal act of creation into the infinite I am. So, whatever I have written here is the definition, the official definition of primary imagination by Coleridge. In simple terms, you can see that it is considered to hold the living power and the prime agent of all human perception. It is the prime agent of the all human perception, the primary agent of all human perception, and is a repetition in the finite mind. It is a repetition in the finite mind in the act of the eternal act of creation. Finite mind of the eternal act of creation. So it is of course something that is very important, but you can see that Coleridge prefers what? Primary imagination or fancy? We can see that later. So going to the next slide, the secondary imagination or the fancy. Now, definition. It is considered as an echo of the former coexisting with the conscious will. Of course, primary imagination is there. Something that is imbibed within the senses is there. But after the senses imbibe this kind of imagination, you can say that there is an alteration of this particular imagination by the conscience. The conscience willingly changes the kind of imagination or the kind of perception that we have seen, and yet still as identical with the primary in the kind of its agency and differing only in degree and in the mode of operation. It dissolves, diffuses, dissipates in order to recreate. It is essentially fixed and dead. So you can see that fancy changes the primary imagination. The primary imagination is molded by fancy, and this makes the primary imagination quite a bit different from what it was at first. So at the first time it was certainly a degree lesser than fancy, but fancy changes this particular perception. It makes this particular perception or the imagination into different kind, and it recreates it, and therefore you can see that it is essentially fixed and dead. So the secondary imagination is possible only after primary imagination is there, and therefore it is fixed and it is dead. The only thing that it can do is it can only recreate, it can only mold the first thing. Only if the first thing is there, the second thing is there. So the second thing is not alive, or it is dead without the first thing. So the importance given by Coleridge to, what did the Coleridge give importance to? You can say that for Coleridge, primary imagination that was responsible for the acts were truly creative and inventive, and in turn that identified true instances of fine or noble art, and fancy was a mere pretender who alters the primary imagination. So here Coleridge says that every piece of writing is having two kind of imagination. The first one is primary imagination, the second one is secondary imagination. Secondary imagination is having the name called as fancy. Now he prefers the primary imagination because the primary imagination is the life of that thing. ഒരു സാധനം നമ്മൾ കാണുമ്പോൾ അല്ലെ പെർസീവ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ആ പെർസെപ്ഷനിലാണ് നമ്മൾക്ക് കാണുന്ന ഒരു ഐഡൻറ്റിറ്റി കാണുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, പക്ഷേ ദ സെക്കൻഡറി ഇമാജിനേഷൻ ആസ് സംതിങ് ദാറ്റ് മൗൾസ് ഇറ്റ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് പ്രൈമറി ഇമാജിനേഷനാണ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് കൂടുതൽ. നൗ ദ സെക്കൻഡറി ഇമാജിനേഷൻ ഈസ് എ പ്രിറ്റൻഡർ. ചുമ്മാ പ്രിറ്റൻഡ് ചെയ്യുക മാത്രമാണ്. ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ് സൂപ്പർ നാച്ചുറാലിറ്റി എലമെൻറ്റ് എക്സെട്ര ഈസ് ദെയർ. പക്ഷേ ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് തിങ് ഈസ് the thing that we perceive, the imagination, the first after effect of viewing something, that is more important than the second thing. Now going to the critical contribution, you can see all these are mentioned in chapter 14 of Biographia Literaria. Now his critical contribution is, he is the first critic to differentiate between imagination and fancy. He was the first critic to distinguish between primary and secondary imagination. Now, he defined poetry as a creation based upon the sensations and impressions which are shaped and modified by the poetic imagination. He says that creation is something that is based upon the perception that is critical, that is the sensations and the impressions which are shaped and modified by the poetic imagination, which is the fancy. Poetic imagination is fancy, and this way the poetic creation takes place. So poetic creation is a mingling of imagination and fancy, and that is how a poetic creation, an output is made. That is what he says. Now the mode of criticism. The mode of criticism that Coleridge applies is descriptive criticism. He applies his own theories of poetry and drama into practice and shows their validity according to this. So he says that the mode of criticism that is found here is descriptive criticism. Now going to another set of contributions, you can see that he established that a poem is an organic whole. Its form is determined by its content. So ഒരു poem എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ it is definitely having a whole structure. It is complete in itself. Okay, that is what he says. Now meter and rhyme are not pleasure superadded but an essential to the pleasure. He says that meter as well as rhyme are not pleasure superadded but it is essential to the pleasure. That is, meter and rhyme are an essential for the pleasure element. Now going to his special word, that is willing suspension of disbelief, you can see that Coleridge says that although his characters were supernatural or at least romantic, he tried to give them a human interest and a semblance of disbelief that would prompt readers to the willing suspension of disbelief which constitute the poetic faith. So here he says that everything that he has written with his supernatural element, he makes the reader understand and know that of course there is something supernatural in it, but the person is willingly agreeing to suspend himself in this kind of disbelief. The same thing you can see in a horror movie. You all may be watching horror movies. You know that there is a certain kind of horror or the fear element in these particular movies, but you are agreeing to willingly suspend yourself in this kind of horror movies because you want to have the kind of thrill, you want to have the kind of emotions that is there. So that is also willing suspension of disbelief. The same can be seen in fantasy movies also. You can see that there is a magic, a certain element of magic is there, but you willingly suspend yourself in this. The same can be seen in Harry Potter series. There is a certain kind of imaginative element which make you think that these things are not natural, it is imaginative. But once you read or watch this kind of movie series, you willingly suspend yourself into this kind of disbelief, and that is what a reader does in Coleridge's work. So that is what he says about willing suspension of disbelief. Now concluding, through his theory of imagination, Coleridge established a unity between philosophy and literature. He based criticism based on human psychology and framed definite principles for the judgment of poetry. He explores the depth of creative art of which he was the first and last representative. He is claimed to be the first and last representative of the person who critically analyzes the importance of and the depth of the creative art. And his criticism is based on human psychology, and the definite principles are there for the judgment of poetry. So this willing suspension of disbelief is something that has a certain element of psychology to it. That is why you are saying that he is of course taking into his consideration the psychological aspect of a human mind, and through his theory of imagination he of course established a unity between philosophy and literature. And with this we conclude our chapter, and thank you. So inviting a certain kind of, if you're having any doubts regarding the same, please feel free to call me.